Welcome back to Raising the Bar, hosted by DWLA leadership members Jaylon and Sydney, who today sit down with Justice Partida-Kipness to discuss the path to the bench, the value of clerkships, and Justice Partida-Kipness's general words of wisdom for women in the legal field.
Welcome back to DWLA's limited podcast series. My name is Jaylon Wesley.
And I'm Sydney Smalling.
This podcast is all about creating community and providing knowledge for women interested in or pursuing law. We aim to provide our listeners with perspective and advice through the stories and lessons from women in the legal profession.
We have the pleasure of introducing the incredible Justice Partida-Kipness, a justice on the 5th District Court of Appeals. Justice Robbie Partida-Kipness is the granddaughter of Mexican immigrants and was born and raised in New Braunfels, Texas. She attended the University of Texas and St. Mary's University School of Law in San Antonio. Prior to taking the bench, Justice Partida-Kipness spent 21 years championing the rights of individuals involved in personal injury, medical malpractice, and mass tort cases. In 2018, Justice Partida-Kipness made history by becoming the first Hispanic to ever be elected to the 125-year-old 5th District Court of Appeals. The 5th Court of Appeals presides over Dallas, Collin, Hunt, Rockwall, and Grayson counties and is the largest appellate court in the state of Texas and handles one of the largest caseloads of any of the intermediate courts of appeal.
Thank you, Jaylon and Sydney, for having me and for coming to the 5th District Court of Appeals. I've never been a guest on a podcast, but I've always wanted to be one, so this is my first time. Let's hope I don't mess it up.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Well, thank you so much, Justice Partida-Kipness, for doing this podcast. I'm looking forward to it. That being said, let's move on to the interview segment. Now, I know a lot of people often perceive judges and justices like yourself as the pinnacle of the legal profession, especially at the Court of Appeals level. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal path to becoming a judge, starting from your time in law school?
Yeah, I came from a family of public servants. Both my mother and my father were both very involved in politics. Voting was a big deal. I came from grandparents that were Mexican immigrants, and once they became citizens, they never missed an opportunity to vote. They voted in every single election. And I knew that one day I wanted to run for office. And in order for me to get there, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I think maybe I watched too many lawyer shows. That was the hype back in the 80s of LA Law. Okay. I'm sure y'all don't know any of that.
We do.
But I thought, I want to wear a suit with big shoulder pads like that and drive a Mercedes. Kidding. But I knew I wanted to be in public service one day, and I knew that going to law school was probably going to be that route. I was one of those, kids that had my whole life planned out and argued with my parents. And so it was always that I wanted to be a lawyer. And once I joined a firm, I was fortunate enough to work for two big plaintiffs' firms that were always involved in politics. And so I was able to continue that. I was a political science major in undergrad. So I was involved in a lot of different big campaigns that you guys would know of and met a lot of great people. And, I think I was starstruck and I had the bug. But in 2016, the opportunity presented itself, and I just felt the calling that it was really my time to step up. I felt where we were as a country, I just thought it's time. And I would have ran for judge earlier than that. I kind of lost like a 10-year span in there. I started my own firm. I finally had a baby. I was a late bloomer there. I was working all the time, partnership track, and I didn't have a baby till I was older. I was 36. But then my mother got really sick, and they were still down in New Braunfels. And so I was caring for my mom, still taking care of a baby. My husband's up here, holding down the front. My mom passed, then my dad got sick. And so I kind of lost like a 10-year span in my career because I would have ran for judge sooner. But I don't regret it. Family comes first, and my parents made every sacrifice in the world for me to just be here. And I felt that I needed to take care of them. And, I had a little baby, so that was kind of hard. But you know what? I think that God gives his toughest challenges to his strongest soldiers. And, it was very difficult. But I came out on the other side. And in 2016, I went ahead and decided I'm going to make my run for the 2018 election.
So can you tell us a little bit about the path that you took campaigning, not specifically the merits, but kind of how strenuous it was to run a campaign for an office like that?
Yeah, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I've done a lot of hard things. We campaigned for 22 months, and we didn't have a summer like this summer, but it was rough. It was rough. And, as y'all said in the introduction, the Fifth Court of Appeals, we have 6 counties. And so that means you're in the car going, it's not just Dallas County. A lot of, like the district judges here, they're just Dallas County. But the Fifth Court of Appeals presides over 6 counties. And 2 of those counties are Dallas and Collin, which are huge counties, as y'all know. But it was all the other, we had to go out to Hunt, Rockwall, Grayson, Kaufman. We had to do that. And I got lost many a times going out there. But you know what? It was hard. When you run for office, and I don't care what party you are, I'm always thank a candidate for running for office, because it is so hard on you mentally, physically, financially. It takes a toll on your family, on your marriage. I gained like 15 pounds on the campaign. I mean, it was awful, but then I lost it once I got elected because I think I was stressed out. But, in answer to your question, it was rough. 22 months, 6 counties, nonstop. And all the while, you're still working because you need to make a living. You still got to pay the mortgage. So my full-time job wasn't just campaigning. I was running my own law firm, raising my kid, and all. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so I have the utmost respect and gratitude for anybody who puts their neck out there and runs for whatever party you are and whatever office it may be.
And then, as we said earlier, you were the first Hispanic to ever be elected to the 5th District Court of Appeals. So can you describe how you felt when you found out you won? Did you feel like you had finally accomplished everything you had wanted in your legal career, or kind of how did that play out for you?
Well, first of all, making a run for the 5th Court of Appeals I was told it was a loser race. I would never win. There hadn't been a Democrat elected to our court in 30 years. I mean, that's not a secret. They told me, you're going to lose, but you run for this race, you're going to learn how to campaign, you're going to get your name out there, and then you can run the next time for a district or a county judgment, which is, what I would have done. But initially I was told, you're not going to win. And yeah, you know that in your head, but you're like, I'm not a loser. I'm going to go out there and do the best that I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can. And we did. And I had 7 other colleagues that we were all running together. We were the 8 of us running together for the 5th Court of Appeals. And we all ended up winning. You have to raise money. You're elected and you have to raise money to run your own campaign. And I begged and scraped around. People would not give me money because they said, you're not going to win, Robbie. You're just not going to win. So we can't really, support you. We're going to support the incumbent, or we're going to give you $50. Campaigns are expensive. Every little mailer that you guys get, during campaign season is about $1.50 to $2. Mm-hmm. The sign that you put in your yard, that's another few bucks. And think about how many of those go around. And that's just that. I mean, you have to canvass, you've got to block walk and door knock. You do so many meet and greets, but I just felt like I was getting a lot of doors slammed in my face, and so did my colleagues as well. Nobody wanted to give us money, and it was really hard. So we ran a shoestring budget and did everything ourselves. To be honest with you, I think that during the time we were running, I didn't fully appreciate that, you would be the first. Now, my colleague now, Justice Denise Garcia, who had ran for this court before I ran and, helped move the needle, she lost. She was on the family court bench. But she told me when I was running in 2018, she said, you're going to win. And it was like a year and a half before election. She took me aside and said, you are going to win. And I just how do you know that? And I had goosebumps, talking to her. And she said, because I know, I've done the numbers. You are going to win. You're going to be the first. And I was like, oh. And I never forget that moment. I know exactly what I was wearing. I know what she was wearing. I know where we were. And she put that in my head. And I was just like, well, maybe there is a chance. So in answer to your question, I don't think that I fully grasped the moment of how big that was until we won. And it was a surprise, you guys. I mean, I was prepared to lose that night, election night. I wasn't even dressed up or had hair and makeup and dressed up. I am not kidding you. The only thing I had done was I had my son, who was little at the time, he's only 8 years old, whatever. I had his little suit pressed and my husband's suit pressed just in case. And I would need to show my face down at the party afterwards and thank everybody. But I was just like, I wanted to be by myself watching the early returns come in. I did go and watch them with my campaign manager, and I was wearing flip-flops and a sundress because it was hot, on November, whatever that day was, November 6th. and the early returns came in from Dallas, and they were huge. But I was like, I don't believe any of this. I need to see Collin County. We needed Collin County. And we needed a certain number from Collin County. We knew we weren't going to win Collin County, but we needed a certain number. Anyways, those numbers came in, and my campaign manager tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, you need to go home and get ready. And you need to get your husband and your kid, and you need to be down at the party, and, then the rest was history. And I called my husband in the car. I mean, I have goosebumps telling this story. I'd ordered the Mi Casino food, and they were waiting. And I said, Jason, I'm going to win. And he was just like, what? Yeah, and the little kids, screaming and on. I'm like, holy crap, this is, my whole life changed in that moment. Went home and got dressed, and we went down, and the rest is history. And then, my whole life changed immediately. And then maybe a few days later, I realized, you're the first, and it's a big responsibility, and you need to live up to it, and you can't blow this. You cannot blow this, and all eyes are going to be on you, waiting for you to mess up, But, I seized the moment. The only thing that hurt my heart was not having my mom and dad there, And then when I got sworn in on January 1st of 2019, that was a 1-year anniversary of my daddy's death. He died on New Year's Day of 2018. And, he wasn't there to see me. And that was really, really hard because they would have been so proud,
They're proud now.
Yeah, and I know they're looking down, and I know they're my son's little guardian angel because my son, he was their only grandchild. So anyways, I hope that, did I answer the question?
Yes,
I think I
absolutely.
did.
Yeah, you have certainly been a pioneer for women, especially Latino women in, Dallas, Collin County, all of those places. So I remember Justice Garcia telling us that story about how she told you were going to be the first to win. So I've known your name since then. I'm looking forward
she
to
told you
meeting
that?
Oh yeah.
Oh, she told you that story? Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I remember that
I
vividly.
love that.
Yeah.
And, she has been such an awesome mentor. We're like sisters, and we're so much alike, but we're so different.
Oh, yes.
We couldn't be
So
more different, but we're so much alike because we grew up the same way, in a Mexican-American household, and we understand the same jokes. And I cannot tell you, I was on the court 2 years before she got here, and it wasn't until she got here and we got acclimated. It was during the pandemic and all, but it was just like my experience here really became that much more enjoyable. I had somebody I could identify with. I had somebody I trusted. I had somebody that brought this big wealth of knowledge of family law and, could teach. I could learn from her. And we are each other's, biggest supporters. And anytime I get asked to do something, I bring her or she brings me. And we do everything together, and we're here to support one another.
So moving on to the next question, you've told us a little bit about your background and your experience running for judge, but before that, what would you say was the most valuable experience during your legal career that put you on a judicial trajectory?
When I attended St. Mary's School of Law down in San Antonio, and I was on, I didn't have a college fund or a graduate school fund. I was on full, borrowing money on loans. And I was used to working. I put myself through undergrad. I had a scholarship as well, but I came out of undergrad with zero debt. But, I thought that I would stay in San Antonio forever. That's why I went to St. Mary's. I'm like, this is where I'm going to be. I was from New Braunfels, but I thought I wanted to practice there, and all my buddies were down there, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. But I had to work. So and as you guys know, you don't work your first year of law school. It's all encompassing. They set it up to where you can't even work. So I only worked, I was waiting tables. I worked my first semester, and that was really hard. And after that, I wasn't working, and you're borrowing money, and you're stressed out. You know how it is. You're living hand to mouth, and it's just awful. I'm traumatized by those days. Guess maybe that's why I live large now. But anyways, I had to work. And so immediately after, when we finished our first year of law school, I was like, I've got to get a paying gig. And I can't do internships that don't pay. Everybody makes their own decision what's good for them. And I just just send, this is back in the day where you would mail a cover letter and a resume. You know, you didn't do everything on the internet. So back in 1996. So anyways, I must have sent out, I don't know how many cover letters. I don't even know how I had money for postage. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Do you know what? A friend helped me. A lawyer friend, a young guy, helped me with all of that. So that was good. But anyways, long story short, I sent out all these resumes and I got a couple of hits. And I got lucky. And I got a paid clerkship. I was a law clerk at a plaintiff's personal injury firm down in San Antonio, a very reputable one. And I stayed working for him, you know, the rest of that summer and until I graduated. And I was making $20 an hour, and I thought I was rich. I thought that was all the money in the world. You know, I mean, I was just like, okay, I can get a car payment because my car was awful and always breaking down. I mean, it was great. But anyways, in answer to your question, it was my boss there and that law firm. I was fortunate enough that they liked me. I was a hard worker. And they told me, they gave me the advice early on when I was clerking that your reputation is everything. And you got to be honest. You got to be hardworking because your work ethic, you'll be known for your work ethic. And that still holds true today, ladies. And you keep your word. You know, keep your word and treat other, you know, opposing counsel and staff and court personnel. You treat everybody with the utmost respect and dignity. It could be, you know, the guy that's picking up your trash at the end of the day and you're still working at 8 get a relationship with him. You know, hello, Sam, how are you? How's your kids? And I did that. I mean, it meant something. It really, you're building relationships. My boss had told me, you know, just continue to make good relationships and keep a good reputation. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to have worked at two great firms that were very, you know, politically involved and worked on campaigns. And I was able to continue that once I had my own law firm. And just a side note, a brag note here, when I worked for one of those big firms, I got to meet Barack Obama when he was running for United States Senator for Illinois. And there was only, get this, guys, I was dressed up wearing a suit because at this firm we had to wear suits every day. I was working for Silver Perlman at the time. And the managing partner came by and said, hey, we got to go to this fundraiser and they need room fillers, you know. And I was like, room fillers? And he goes, you're dressed good, you're coming with me. He only picked up, there were only 3 of us that were dressed good enough for him to go with. And we go to this McMansion here in Dallas, and we're in this little atrium room, just this, I will remember this for the rest of my life, you know, and former Mayor Ron Kirk introduced Barack Obama, you know, and I didn't know who he was, and he has a book there, The Blessings from My Father, I believe. I think that was his first book. He had it there, and he spoke like he was speaking to a crowd of 500,000, and I was just, I had on a lavender suit. With, yeah, I mean, you know, I dressed loud. It was a light lavender suit with the big, this is back when Carrie Bradshaw on Sex and the City, and I had that big pin because she'd wear flowers, so I had to have a big pink rose on my lavender suit and pink pointy-toe high heels. Anyways, I'll never forget the first words Barack Obama said to me was, that's some suit. And do you know, ladies, I still have that suit. I can't get my left thigh in there. But I kept that suit with the big old flower on it because Barack Obama touched it.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
A president of the United States. Yeah, but anyways, it was amazing. Okay, so we're heading off. We get in our boss's Suburban, whatever, and we get in there. We all just kind of sat down for a minute. And I told the guys, I was the only girl, I looked at them and I said, guys, I think we just witnessed greatness. And my boss goes, I think we did too. And I said, damn it, why didn't we get a picture? Why didn't we get a book signed? Go buy a book. He's like, yeah. So it was really funny. And that's just kind of ties into working somewhere that was, you know, politically involved. And like I said, I was always a political beast. I loved all that growing up. And I loved being a political science major, you know, and meeting all those candidates. And I have met other former presidents too. So anyways, I'm just kind of a political junkie like that. But I think just staying involved and volunteering. I volunteered for a lot of campaigns. That was just something I loved doing. And being in the legal field, I was like, I'm going to volunteer on a lot of judicial campaigns local. I want to get to know these people. And, you know, in 2006, here in Dallas County, the courts were changing, you know, and that was the year I had my son. And I'll never forget, I was in the hospital still, because my son was born on November 2nd. I was in the hospital, had a C-section, was kind of loopy still. And my husband brings me the newspaper, back when we read newspapers, and he said, oh, look, the courts have all changed. That's when it swept and everything changed. We helped on this campaign or that, and, but I just had a baby. But that's when I knew things were changing. Things were changing in Dallas County, and maybe I'd have a shot one day.
Well, you did mention that, running for justice was hard work. And you also mentioned that at that time in 2006 that the courts were changing. Mm-hmm. So now that you are a justice, what has been some of the more challenging things that you had to undergo as being a first Hispanic justice as well as maybe a female justice?
Well, fortunately here at the Fifth Court of Appeals, gosh, the women have the majority now. Yeah, so it'll be great when we get a female chief too. So, and it may be somebody y'all know, not me, but not me, but it'll be somebody else that I love very much, So yeah, I think that would be great. But one of the challenging things, one of the biggest transitions that was difficult for me coming to the court was I had worked, at big firms. And then the 10 years prior to when I ran, I had my own law firm, with my husband. And when you come here, I don't know, I think, Jaylon, you're familiar with how we do our work.
Yes.
Because you work for Justice Carlisle. So you know that we sit in panels of 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and each justice has the equivalent of 2 full-time brilliant staff attorneys. Pardon me. And then if you go what's called en banc, if a case goes en banc, that means, for those of you that don't know, it's where the whole court hears it. And well, get this, we have 13 of us. So are you doing the math? You following me here? Mm-hmm. The most challenging thing for me was the collaborative aspect of the work and having everybody check my work. I'd been the boss for 10 years, My husband was my boss, I was running the show. That was difficult. And I know that was it is and will be a difficult transition for any former judges that come to this court. I wasn't a former judge, but I ran my own firm for a long time. And yeah, that was a little hard on the ego, and they're kicking it back. And all of a sudden, it's no longer your opinion. You're no longer the majority. You may be the dissent now. That's a little difficult. But in fairness to the process, it's the process we have, it's the process we work, and we work with, and it's a safety net. Because, hey, maybe I was wrong. I got it wrong. The law was wrong. And that happens. And so you have all these other people checking your work. It's a good thing, but it's also a difficult thing. And, and as far as, like the most rewarding part of being a justice.
Yes, let's hear that.
Gosh, the opportunities that it provides. I didn't think I was a nobody before I came, but I wasn't here. People take my call. I'm not like, hey, can I, so-and-so or whatever. I mean, people take my call now. And I use that. I don't abuse that, but I use that to the best of my ability to teach, to volunteer, to learn, and to mentor. So it's really awesome, and especially as being, the first Latina, and like I said, I have Justice Garcia with me and now, but it's a responsibility. I take it very seriously. If you follow my Facebook or whatnot, I mean, I try to do as much as I can, for everybody, women, but for the Latino community, because we are underrepresented here in the judiciary and in Dallas County. The most rewarding is that I've got a platform here to do really good work and to give back and to pave the way for others, other women, other Latinos. It's really good for kids to see somebody like me in this position. And I do a lot of speaking, high school kids, little kids, Boy Scout troops. They need to see that. They need to see somebody that they identify with and say, hey, you can do this too. So that's the most rewarding thing to me, is the opportunities it gives me to go do, to even be here with y'all, to have met y'all. Who was going to call me up and ask me to do speed mentoring or be on a podcast? Oh, well, because you're a justice, So at least I get to impart some of my knowledge, and I'm all about lifting everybody up. There are people that helped me, not as much as I would have liked, but I don't have a grudge about that. I just think it is my obligation to lift up and to show the path to anybody else that wants to become a judge. I know what I know, state judge. I can't tell you about the federal. That would be my good friend, Judge Irma Ramirez. Yeah, that's the most rewarding part to me.
So on that note, you talked a little bit about how you do a lot of speaking to, middle school, high school, and then of course you've been really valuable to our experience and our time in the Dallas Women Lawyers Association. So what advice would you give to young listeners who have aspirations to be a judge or a justice one day, whether that's state court, federal court, family court, anything like that? Is there anything specifically that they can do during their legal career or law school that could help put them on that path?
Yeah, and I can mostly speak to state, like I said, because federal is a whole different entity. That is not political. They are, appointed. And so they're not running as a Republican or a Democrat. They're not running campaigns. So that's a whole different entity. But I can speak to anything state judiciary. But number one, it's simplistic. You got to have confidence in yourself. You got to believe in yourself. And you need to know that each one of you are in control of your own careers. Nobody else is going to care about your own career more than you. You got to know that. You got to be confident. You got to believe in yourself. And you got to know, I got to make this happen. You have to believe that you have the power to make your career what you want it to be. If you're like, hey, I want to be a sports lawyer, I'm going to represent, I want to go work for the Cowboys or whatever. You can make things happen. You're going to fail a few times, but you got to believe you can do it. And I know that kind of sounds dumb or simplistic, but it's really true. You put that out in the universe and you go out there and you make it happen. And it may be like me being a judge, it was a longer time frame because life got in the way, and that's okay. But if you want something bad enough, you can really make it happen. As far as like a legal experience, when you're a young lawyer and if maybe you're thinking down the road of running for judge one day, you want to get as much legal experience as possible, whether that be trials, writing briefs, opinions, speaking. If you can get board certified, you want to be the most qualified candidate in the race that you're running. And the way to be qualified is to start young, like y'all are doing now. You're going to finish your law school. You're going to go on, take the bar. You're going to pass. You're going to get jobs. But just get as much legal experience, continuing legal education. If you can get board certified, go to the best firm that will hire you. You want to be the most qualified candidate. It is very important that we have qualified judges. And I promise you, it'll work out. But number one is you got to believe in yourself. You have the power to make it happen.
Thank you, Justice Partida-Kipness. That was amazing. Now, I know a lot of students are starting to talk about clerkships. Can you tell us a bit about clerkships, maybe how do you get them or how valuable they are and how they can potentially add to your career later down the line?
Well, I'm going to speak to court clerkships. I did not clerk for a judge. I told y'all, that, hey, I needed money. And so I went and worked at a personal injury firm, and I told you I made $20 an hour and I thought I was rich. If for some reason, I didn't have mentors in law school other than just my boss that I worked for. I didn't have anybody telling me you should do this, you should have done that. I didn't. You guys are in a different age and there's so much out there, so I wish I would have done that. I do. But let me say a few things. Clerking for a court is invaluable. However, it's not the end all be all. Like if you don't get, because let's do the math, ladies. There's only so many clerkships to go around. Okay, there's only so many. There's a limited amount of judges, limited amount of time. So they're not mandatory for your success. They're just not. Okay, so don't worry if you, and I'm speaking to all of y'all out there, don't worry if you don't get one because they're limited. And they're coveted positions. Another thing, don't be discouraged if you don't get a clerkship the first time that you apply. What I advise is when you're in law school and your summers, or even if you're taking a light load and you can work, just go get exposure to different areas of the law because you really don't know what you want to practice. It's really hard. It's kind of like when y'all were deciding what was going to be your major for college. Because I was thinking about that with my son now. Well, how the heck does a 15-year-old know? You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with law. So court clerkships, I'll talk about that. But just know that if you don't get one, it is not the end of the world. And use your time to get exposure to different areas of the law. And gain as much experience as you can, work experience or internship, whatever that may be, while you're in law school, because you want to get as much hands-on experience, whether that be sitting third or fourth chair in a trial, or writing briefs or motions, or getting any kind of exposure to litigation. Take it. Now, if you are fortunate enough to be one of those that gets a court clerkship or even an internship at a court, the connections you make are invaluable, because you're going to get a bird's eye view. What they like to say is how the sausage is made, of how we do things behind the scenes. You really are, so then you go on to your next job, real job, and you're able to say, oh, well, this is how they do that. It's going to take them X amount of days before they decide this or get this out. I mean, you're going to bring that experience and that knowledge. Not everybody gets that, but don't be discouraged about clerkships. And here's something that I learned, and Judge Ramirez told me this, and this pertains to like federal courts. If you really want like a federal clerkship, go and look at other counties. Be willing to move and spend a summer. And I'm talking about, go to Lubbock. You know what I mean? And, go wherever. Go wherever because they will want some of y'all. If you really got your heart set on doing a federal clerkship, which are very prestigious, and they look so good on a resume, they just do. It's just one of those things that holds its value. Look elsewhere, because everybody wants to be in Dallas, and you're here and you don't have to move. But if you're that serious on it, apply out. Send your stuff out. Look at different cities. Don't just limit yourself to Dallas, especially in federal courts. And if you really want a clerkship, not even just federal or state, you got to keep trying. Don't just keep applying. It didn't work this summer. Keep applying the next summer. And you can apply later. Maybe you're a baby lawyer first year out. Mm-hmm. Some of those are already licensed, and they'll go do this, especially in the federal courts. So that's my advice. Don't be discouraged if you never got one, because it's not going to make or break your career. If you get one, it's great. It's really valuable. And if you really want one, make it happen. Go to some place you don't want to go, but you're getting that experience, because you're going to write. You'll get a lot of great experience.
I will say, I wish I would have known that my 1L summer, just job searching. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that, one, clerkships were that valuable, and two, like you said, Dallas and Austin and some of the larger cities here in Texas are highly sought after, especially Austin.
Oh, yeah, 'cause you got UT Law.
Exactly.
Harvard to the South.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, what would you say are some attractive qualities that a potential judicial law clerk could bring to the table? I guess in terms of what a judge is looking for and what ways you can stand out, whether that be your resume or something in an interview. Do you have any advice on that?
I can only speak to what I look for in a clerkship. Everybody's different, personalities are different, workload is different, but I can speak to what I look for. We don't have paid clerkships, so we call them interns here. And for my chambers, I always look for a rising 3L. I want a rising 3L that are strong writers, and that means they need to have had good grades and a great writing sample. That matters to me, because if you come to my chambers, you're going to assist on writing opinions. You just are. I like it. I think it's great. I think that's the way you learn. You'll get a lot of guidance. It's not going to be your opinion. We just send it out. No, it gets heavily edited, but you get the opportunity to open the record, to listen to the oral argument, to read the notes, from conference, to go and be hands-on with the briefs and the case law. And you learn how to piece an opinion together. My intern this summer, she did a criminal opinion for us. And I thought, this is an easy one. We'll give it to her. Well, it ended up having some hiccups. Not her fault. I was like, we probably shouldn't have given this one to her. But she did great. And we edited it a lot. But still, she hadn't had any criminal experience. And she got to read the record. She's like, oh my gosh, Judge, I can't believe all these things happen. I'm like, girl, people are crazy. You open up that record and you see what all they did. And you listen to, you read the trial transcript and all. So in my chambers, like I said, I want people that do have the strong writing experience, because if you come here, I'm putting you to work. I need work out of you, because the summers are so busy and so heavy here. We're just trying to get all our opinions out. So I want somebody that can hit the ground running and help my chambers. I also look for someone who's a a real self-starter. I like people that are quick learners and they're just all around go-getters. I'm a very high type A outgoing personality, and that works in my chambers. It works for me because I'm like, okay, we feed off each other. And I look for somebody who's also very well-rounded and has been involved in a lot of other activities in law school. Grades matter, writing matters, all of that, but that they do something else. There's something else that they're interested in. Some people do the clinics, maybe an immigration clinic, or they're the president of an association there at the school. They're doing other things. That means, to me, that shows me they can multitask, and they're wanting to do things. They're go-getters, they're self-starters. That says something to me. And I have been blessed. I'm finishing my 4th year, and we had COVID in there, so I didn't have an intern there because I didn't believe we should be doing that just remote or whatnot. But I have been fortunate enough to have 3 excellent interns. And I'm very fond of, and I think of them as all my babies. And I swear them in when they get licensed. I even performed the wedding ceremony of one of them. I mean, if you intern for me, you're like one of my kids, and I think that's the way it should be, and I hope that, they invite me to their weddings and when their baby's born and all, I take it that seriously and I get that close to them. Yeah. That's what I look for. So it's got to be somebody that's kind of compatible.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
That's what I look for too. So,
but in the same breath, it could be somebody totally opposite from me, but that's like brilliant, brilliant, and they want to learn, and they're just like, I can do this. Hey, I'm not going to shy away from that either. I just kind of have been drawn to people like me.
Very outgoing.
We tend to have fun.
Yes.
Lunches, happy hours,
definitely
shopping.
enjoyed this interview.
Definitely.
So earlier in the episode, you mentioned people like Justice Garcia that told you from the outset that they believed that you were going to win an election when other people told you there's no way that you're going to win because you just won't have the numbers. And you also mentioned the fact that you like to mentor and to give back. This podcast is all about empowering women, empowering lawyers, and people who want to become lawyers. So with that being said, do you have any tips or just words of advice to give out to our listeners?
I do. This is the greatest thing I love to talk about. It sounds like I like to talk about myself, but I really don't. That's not important. I like to give advice, and I am not perfect. I made mistakes growing up, coming through the system. When you're in law school and you're a baby lawyer, I have made mistakes. I've seen a lot. I'm in a position now, to where I can tell you, hey, don't do this, but do this. And I have like 3 key things that I do like to tell young law students or young lawyers. It's your self-care, it's your support for other women, and mentorship. Those are my 3 real big things. And what I mean by self-care, you probably think, oh, well, we know that already. But no, it's serious. I'm being serious. When you're in law school, it's all encompassing and you're stressed out and, maybe you were like me and didn't have money and this, that, and the other. But when you're first starting law school, you need to be sure that you're taking care of yourself. Women empowerment includes self-care. And that means your routine health checkups. And I know I sound like a mom, but hey, I am a mom, and I'm going to tell you all these things. This is important. Get your routine health checkups, Have a good diet. Get adequate sleep. I know that that's hard, even if that means you got to take a nap later in the afternoon before you're going to hit it hard for studying the rest of the evening. Exercise in some form. I exercised my whole 3 years in law school, and then, I was preparing for a wedding too. So, and I did kickboxing, and it was the greatest thing because I let out all my aggression. It was awesome. But, it's simplistic, but take care of yourself. It's important. You've got to take care of your body and your mind. It's very easy to become overwhelmed and anxious or depressed even, and keep in contact with your family. I know you feel like the only people that understand you while you're in law school are just the other law students, but keep in contact with your parents. They want to hear from you, or your brother or sister. Have a little bit of outside people that are in the real world, not in hell, like law school. So do that. That's important. Be sure to take those mental breaks from all that's law school. My husband and I we're in law school together, and we love to go to movies, and we like to see all those indie films. We thought we were hipsters, but that was cool. That was something we did. We're like, oh, this new movie's coming out. There was an independent film theater down in San Antonio, and we would go like every every couple of weeks we would go, and that was our little treat, and it was my downtime, and my downtime was going to the gym because I was trying to get into a wedding dress. Also, but, and you know, I know I say silly things, but one of the things I'm real serious about is you need to learn how to squash the inner critic of yourself, okay? And that means don't fall prey to imposter syndrome. I think, you know, if y'all don't know what imposter syndrome is, go look it up, but it's a bad thing. But truth be told, we all suffer from it. We all suffer from it. I mean, I suffer from it. You know, God, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? You know, was this opinion good enough? We all do. But the thing is, you got to get that out of your head. Imposter syndrome is just negative thought. So squash that inner critic. And, you know, as I've gotten older, you know, I'll hear, you know, friends will be like, oh, I need to lose 10 pounds. Oh, I'll be like, oh, you look pretty. Or, oh, I need to lose 10 pounds. You know, they'll come with a negative. And I'll be like, don't say that about yourself. You know, I've gotten to that where I'll correct my friends and colleagues. Don't say that about yourself. I find that offensive. You look amazing. You know, believe that. Believe that. Pump yourself up. You know, don't be down on yourself. Oh, I could have made a better grade, or I could have done this. You know, it is what it is, and we're all trying to do our best, and we're all beautiful, and we all want to be healthy, and we're all smart, you know, really. So don't stop the inner critic. You are smart enough, and you do belong here. You know, and I know it's easier said than done, but, you know, get you some good friends that y'all pump each other up. And tying in with that, I've said this a million times already, is just being confident, because you can become who you were really meant to be. Realize your full potential. And then just kind of segueing into my next point about women supporting women, I'm just a big believer of us supporting each other. And, you know, since this is a Dallas Women Lawyers Association podcast, this is just something that is so near and dear to my heart. And, you know, I'm going to be 52 years old in November. And I'm just kind of, I will correct people now, friends of mine or other colleagues, you know, if they're saying something about another woman, let's not do that. That's not helping anything. It's just wrong. But let me just put this in perspective for you. In Texas, the practice of law is 38% female, okay? But the law students are 50% female in the state of Texas. So, I mean, what does that mean, guys? We're taking over, you know, we're taking over. So we're gaining momentum, and it's imperative that we support one another and not bring each other down. And, you know, we talked before we started recording, and y'all told me y'all really haven't experienced that. And I think that's wonderful. You know, I really do. And so I'm glad y'all haven't had any negative experiences. I think, you know, maybe it's generational, but it will happen at some point. Being in law school is uber competitive. When you're out at your first job being a baby lawyer, it's uber competitive, and people will do shady things. But you know what? Don't be that person. Don't be that person. I mean, I just can't say enough about supporting other women. And let me give you some other examples about what I mean by that. As often as you can, back up other women in front of them. Say you're in a meeting or whatnot, and Jaylon, you're not in the same meeting as Sydney, but y'all are talking about this podcast. Man, Jaylon did a really great job, you know, getting this together, and support other women even when they are not in the same room. Speak positively about them when they're not even around. People notice that. You know, that, hey, you're pumping up your friend. Share your successes. Justice Garcia and I, Judge Ramirez and I, we're so much like this. If we get asked to speak on something, I'm like, oh, but I got to bring my friend. And they're like, oh, great, you know, or I'm going to co-chair. They'll sit in a chair. I'm going to co-chair. And then I drag her in, poor thing. I'm always signing her up for stuff. And I call her and I say, hey, I may or may not have got you to be a co-chair with me on this. And she's like, oh, Robbie, you know. But, you know, I share these things because I want her to be seen, and then it's more fun together. And pay it forward, you guys. You know, somebody does something good for you, pay it forward. You know, don't be jealous of other women. It's just the worst, you know. It's like there is enough to go around. There truly is. You know, there is enough for everybody to be successful. You want to be that colleague and friend that supports others, and be genuine and be sincere. You know, don't gossip or speak badly of other women, because I can promise you, ladies, it's going to get back to them. It gets back to them. And you know what? Don't ever put anything in writing, because everybody is screenshotting text. It happens at the highest level. So just don't do it. If you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't put it in a text. Just don't be that woman. You know, and I know that's hard. We're all humans and whatnot. Just be careful who your audience is. I mean, because I promise you guys, you'd be so shocked about people you've gone to law school with or worked at a first job with that you're like, I don't like them, or they're not smart, or whatever. They'll come back around and they could be your boss. Or they can be, a colleague, and you're the new guy at the firm, and there they are. I'm telling you, the practice of law is the biggest small field. And I'm not talking just about Dallas. That's anywhere you go. The legal field is small. So don't burn any bridges. Don't be a jerk, And I speak from experience. I'm not perfect. Did I make mistakes? Yeah, you bet I did. And that's why I'm telling you these things, because I don't want y'all to make the same mistakes and things I've done. So I'm not saying that I'm, so great and I never did any of these things. I'm just trying to impart this on y'all so nothing like that comes back around on you. Just know, the legal field is small, no matter where you end up practicing. And all those things, that is what's important for women empowerment and for us to lift each other up and for us to take over the legal field and to be the leaders. Be happy for one another. And then, finally, I spoke about mentorship. That's my favorite thing. If people ask me, what's your favorite thing about the job? And I'm like, it's mentorship. Yeah, I like it that, I have a platform, but I love this. I love being with the young people. I just do. I mean, y'all keep me young. In my mind, I'm 16, but I love to know about your lives. I love to know what y'all are doing. And, gosh, when I was in law school, I would have killed to have had a judge as a mentor. But I didn't know any judges. Times are just different now. Y'all are able to have access. I think here, the Court of Appeals wasn't always accessible. Everybody always talked about it as like, ooh, wow, that's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. But since we got here, we're very accessible and very approachable. And we're out there in the community speaking and doing things. And, I know a bunch of my colleagues, Justice Garcia is always, teaching. Justice Now is always speaking. Justice Rychek does mentorships. She has her own little program going on at UNT. I mean, there's just so many, and it's the women, doing a lot of great things. They really are. Even now, just as a sitting justice, I have been fortunate enough to have, actually, well, if you count Justice Garcia, it's really 3. But when I first came on the bench, I was so blessed that 2 judges took me under their wing. And I mean, if you follow me on Facebook, former Texas Supreme Court Justice Eva Guzman. And we're different parties and all that, but that doesn't matter. It's like once you get on the bench, it's not partisan politics. You're here to interpret the law. And she, heard about me, winning up here, and I got to meet her at a Dallas bar function, and we're inseparable. I mean, we are comadres. I mean, she is like a fairy godmother to me. And I mean, never in my wildest years, guys, did I think I would be that close to somebody like her. I remember just being in awe. Well, I mean, I remember the very first time I met her, I was a baby lawyer, and she came to speak at the Dallas Hispanic Bar Association gala, and I got to introduce her, and I was just like, oh my God, you're so beautiful, I love you. And it was just so great, so I've been blessed to have good mentors. And then we've spoken about federal magistrate, Judge Edma Ramirez. She too we met at a Dallas bar thing for the judiciary, and she was like, how come I don't know you? I go, I don't know, but I'm really glad I met you because you're a federal judge. And like, oh my gosh, and she was like, how do I not know you? Like, I don't know. And then from then on, we just hit it off. I mean, she has been so amazing. And, when you're in the judiciary, it's especially up here, because we're not seeing attorneys a lot. It's isolating. It really is. It's a little monastic around here. Jaylon,
Yes.
You worked here. It's a little monastic, right?
Tad bit, yes.
Yeah, it is. And that's a little bit hard for somebody like me, and they always told me, Judge Ramirez told me, and Justice Guzman always told me, you need to still be you. So that means you do your job, but you be out there. You still get out there and do whatever makes you happy as far as volunteering and giving back and mentoring. So, I've been blessed to have 2 really, really good mentors. So what I can say to all of y'all is be a mentor to somebody else. And that could be somebody that's, okay, y'all are going to be 2 L's or 3 L's?
I'll be a 3L.
Okay,
I'll be a 2L.
Okay. that could be a little 1L coming in, that you're just kind of found something in common with. Help her out or him out, and to show them the ropes. Oh, this teacher was really hard, or this is what they require. Be that person. Pay it forward, and find you a good mentor. And I know that's easier said than done, but they're out there. when you meet somebody, like say, you guys were at that speed mentor thing and you met all these different people, thank you cards or emails, personal emails to those people matter. They matter. And I can't believe, and I'm not knocking your generation, but I can't believe how many people don't do it. I mean, that, if somebody sends me an email or a handwritten card, oh, I met you at such and such and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I remember them, and it stays with me, and they're going to come back around, or I ask them, to lunch or whatnot. Just know when people give their time, judges or other lawyers out there, just definitely keep in contact if you care to. But always say thank you. It's manners never go out of style. My parents always told me, we may not have come from anything, but we always have manners, because manners will get your foot in the door. And that still holds true today, because think about it, you guys are young, but I'm a different generation, and these are the people that are, running the firms and doing that. So it still matters to them. They're not, millennials or the younger generation. So all of that still matters. Do that. Like I said, get a mentor and be a mentor. At some point, maybe you get a high school mentee or a 1L, or it's a new associate at the firm that you're working. Maybe it's through the Dallas Bar Association. There's plenty of ways to mentor. And that's a good thing, because then people, that's just, it's so rewarding, you guys, to be a mentor and then for you to have one. I mean, I know who I can call. There's very few people I can talk to about certain things, at the court. And those are the people I go to, because I know it's in the vault. I know it's safe. I know I can trust them. So be a mentor, and pay it forward, because in the end, the practice of law is better for it. We're all better for it.
Well, I can tell you, being on the receiving end of the mentorship has been especially rewarding. So I hope one day to be on the giving end.
For sure.
And we cannot thank you enough for being here with us. You've given very invaluable advice, and we've loved hearing about your story. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I do have something, in closing remarks, I'm going to be 52 this year. And, at this stage of my career and the position that I am, I really do feel that it's my responsibility to empower other women, especially young women like yourselves. I want you to know that for y'all sitting right here, and everybody else, any other law student or baby lawyer, know that each of you is strong, smart, beautiful, and that you have a voice that needs to be heard. And I hope that, women and the younger generations will rise to the occasion to do what needs to be done. Sydney and Jaylon, thank you so much for having me, and don't ever hesitate to contact me. And I hope I see y'all later at the happy hour at Veronica Beard.
Yes, ma'am.
Peace out.
Thank you so much, Justice. We appreciate having you